Thanks, everybody, for joining us this evening for the show, The Rising. My name is Zach Moore, and we are joined by a very favorite guest of mine, Isaac C. Singleton Jr. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Man, you have no idea who you are to me and my family. Actually, it's more for us than the body of work and everything that you've done throughout your career. But you, I think it was my twins' 5th birthday party, and we did a Pirates of the Caribbean themed birthday party, and we went all out because we had done set design for years and everything, so we created the plank and the whole deal, and the kids were just in fantasy land, and there must have been like 40 of their friends from school and church and everything, and it couldn't have gotten any better. And then all of a sudden, you show up to the party. You're just you, and you show up to the party, and they flipped out. Like, they'd met you before, but I couldn't believe you'd come, and you actually just hung out with my boys. And like, you stayed later and poured a glass of whiskey, and we sat there, and you just hung out with us while they opened all the gifts and everything. I can't tell you what an impact that had on my sons and to me as a friend. And it's just been this indelible memory.
That's nice. I was happy to be there. I mean, Rick showed up with Spencer, so I couldn't leave early because he drove, so I was stuck there.
He was like, I want to be in those stupid bars. You played it like a champ. No, so I've gotten to know you over the course of time, just as a friend, but blown away by the body of work that you've had in your career, both as an actor and as a voiceover actor. I had no idea, Isaac, the depth of work that you've done. I really want to talk about it, but I really want to emphasize what it has been to know you as a friend.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of work, and I'm very thankful for the work that I get. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun.
How many years have you been an actor? When did you start?
I've made a living as an actor now, for 26 years. Yeah.
And did you always live in L.A.?
No, I lived in Orlando before I came here. I was making a living as an actor there before I even came to California. But I knew I had to come to California if I wanted to get the roles that I wanted to get.
What were some of the first early roles that you started getting when you came?
My very first job was on The X-Files, and I got to say the catchphrase of David Duchovny, to trust no one. So that was fun. And Chris Carter got an Emmy for that episode. I'm not saying I had anything to do with it, but I was part of the show.
That's the one with the German ship?
It was an American it was a ship that disappeared in Bermuda Triangle in 1938 and reemerged in 1998. That's right. So that's what happened with that one. It was a lot of fun.
That's great.
Got to shoot on the Queen Mary. We shot in a submarine down there by the Queen Mary.
Heck yeah.
Shot a lot of different places. It was a good time.
That was very cool. I did a small little extra role in a student film, and we shot down, I think, in one of those subs in that plane. It was really fun being in there. It feels super real. You actually had one of the funniest roles in Anger Management.
Anger Management. Let me think. What was that now? What happened?
Anger Management. You are the best on the airline, and you have the straightest, we need you to calm down, sir. And
that was a fun job to work on. Yeah, Adam Sandler was a great guy, and still is, I'm assuming. And Jack Nicholson was great to work with, too. It was a great cast all the way around, so it was fun to work on.
You've been in roles, Pirates of the Caribbean is what is most notable. What was it like working with Jerry Bruckheimer for all that time?
Shit, man, he's an excellent producer. He knows exactly what he's doing. So, yeah, he knows how to put together a movie, and it was great. But even the whole team that he's got around him, and then the people that he hired, like Gore Verbinski to be the director, and then the cast was great. I mean, it was great because we got to travel, got to leave the country, go down to St. Vincent and the Grenadine Islands for 2 months, and we shot a lot of it here in town too. So it was a great time.
You shot for 2 months on tour. How long
the
did
movie
you
was
shoot?
6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, but the shooting, I did Planet of the Apes. That was an 8-month-long movie.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, what's it like working with Tim Burton?
Tim Burton's great also. I mean, it's great to see him when he's like a kid when he's opening presents on Christmas, because when he's getting his shot, you can see it on his face. He's so excited, so happy. And it's great to see a director really enjoy your work when you're doing your job right, when he's coming together, everything's falling together. Because, I mean, that was a gigantic crew.
Huge production.
Gigantic production.
Huge production.
I mean, it took me 4 hours. It was a 4-hour makeup every single day for me, even before I got on set.
Yeah, what was that like? So what time would you even show up on set to get into the outfit that you're in? Like, what did they have to do to get you into it?
Don't even worry about the outfit. I'm talking about the makeup part. The outfit is totally another part of it. The makeup. Like, when we were on set, matter of fact, we started the movie shooting in Lake Powell in Arizona. And my call times would be sometimes 3:30 in the morning just to get there, just so they can start putting my makeup on. So by the time 8 o'clock or so rolled around, then I'm ready to get into my costume to get on set when the crew and everybody else is showing up. Yeah.
Nobody gets that. Do you think people are starting to get that now that we watch more behind the scenes stuff? Or do you think that when kids are watching the films, or people that don't work in the industry are watching this stuff and it's all magical and it's all fun, but then you're there at 3 a.m, and that's not even including your drive time and everything that it took?
Yeah, well, on set, we're on location. So on location, I'm at a hotel. So they just have us send the bus over to pick us up and then drive us out to the set and then take them to the trailer where we had to get our makeup done. I had a team of 2 people working on me every single day for the 8 months of that movie. Yeah.
Did you get to interact with him as a director a lot in the role that you played?
Yeah, he was directing us. So, yeah, I was right there. I'm in that. I mean, I play 4 characters in the movie. So, yeah, he had the director.
Remember the one where you cheat on the cards?
That wasn't cheating. I just had a card up my sleeve.
Just a third hand.
Just something slipped on front of my foot. It's okay.
What was some of your favorite memories on that film, working on that?
Oh, man. I don't know if seeing myself in the makeup for the first time, getting into the set, getting my teeth cast to make the teeth for the costume and for the role. I love playing that character that you were just talking about where I was cheating at cards. That was fun. I mean, there was so many different things I can think of that were on that movie. There were just a lot of fun things that we did because we traveled a lot on that one also. We're Lake Powell in Arizona. We shot in Trona Pinnacles in the desert. I mean, and there were so many locations here in town. Like we went to shot in Sony. We shot in so many different locations here too. So it was just great.
And the sets were fantastic too, to show up and see the worlds that you got to come into.
Mm-hmm.
So you've also worked with Sigourney Weaver and Tim Allen, both when you did Galaxy Quest.
Yeah, that was Galaxy. That was 3-hour makeup every day.
So you do this a lot of the roles.
It felt funny because that's when I got to Los Angeles. I mean, every movie I got, they were trying to cover my face. I'm like, wait, you don't want to see my face? What's wrong with my face? I like my face.
That's what I'm talking about, the role of anger management. You're just right there.
That was finally, you got to see my face. And in Pirates, you got to see my face for the most part. I mean, it does have some keloid marks on my face and skin and neck and all that kind of stuff, but at least you can still sell us me.
Were you, when you went into acting to do this, and you actually studied in Germany too, right? Where you lived there to do high school?
I went to my last 2 years of high school and my first years of college. They called Germany home. I'd come to the States to go to school when I graduated college. When I graduated high school, I flew to the States to go to college. And during the summer and Christmas, I'd fly back to Germany and visit my parents during the Christmas and summer breaks.
Okay.
And then my sophomore year of college, God told me since I was supposed to be an actor. I said, okay, God, I'll listen to you. I transferred to universities, changed my major, and that's what I've been doing ever since. So, yeah.
What's that like? God tells you you're going to be an actor.
He showed me some signs. He's been showing me since I was 4 years old. We don't have a long enough time to go through it on this podcast. But, yeah, there's some signs he's been showing me since I was 4. I saw the signs when I was a sophomore in college. I said, okay, I understand now. And I changed my major and moved universities. And I left Florida A&M University and moved down to University of Central Florida. Got my degree there and started pursuing acting in Orlando. Started making a living as an actor in Orlando. Got hired at Disney doing the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular. Got hired at Universal Studios doing the Wild West Stunt Show. And I started doing shows on Nickelodeon and various movies that would come to town. And that's how I started making a living.
When you started getting the roles that you got in the beginning, was it what you envisioned for the career that you desired and have wanted to pursue?
You know what? I was always happy to get a role and get on set because I knew that was just a stepping stone to get to the next level I wanted to get to. And so I've been asked before, like, well, what do you feel about being typecast?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'd rather be typecast than not cast. So, yeah, cast me. I'm happy to be on set, and then you'll see what I can do, and then maybe down the road you'll hire me for something even better. So that's what I think of it, because all I got to do is get me on the set, let me show you what I can do. Then you'll see, oh, wow, he's not a big lummox. He's got a mind. He's got ability. Let's hire him for this next thing down the road because we've got another project coming up that he'd be even great for.
And you're seeing more and more of those opportunities open up even in the most recent decade. It's unfolding for you.
I just say I'm just thankful to get the work, and I'm thankful for the blessings that God has given me. Has an unfolding. I don't know, because everybody has their own vision of what unfolding is. So I'm still waiting for the unfolding to be coming out for my vision that I'm looking for. Do
you have an idea? Like you have kind of a sense of what that vision is?
Yeah, the sense of the vision is, get to the point where you just say the name Isaac and everybody knows who you're talking about. Because you say a certain actor's name, like, oh, that Denzel movie. Oh, I know who you're talking about. Oh, we're going to go see Morgan's new movie. Oh, yeah, we know who you're talking about. I like to get to the point where they just say, I don't even just say Isaac C. Singleton Jr. They say, oh, the new Isaac movie is coming out Friday. Oh, yeah, let's go see that one.
Well, so this is what blew my mind, because I've known you for, the characters that you've played in some of the prominent stuff we've talked about, where I went down the rabbit hole, and my kids are flipping out. So I've known that you did the voice of Thanos in a lot of the Avenger video games, cartoons. Man, I did like a deep dive on your voiceover career, and you, like, I can't believe the projects that you've worked on. Like, that is Isaac. Like, you were you pronounce it Sagat. It's not. I always said Sagat as a kid.
Sagat. Street Fighter.
It's Street Fighter.
Yeah.
You are the voice of Sagat. Oh, that tripped me out. What are some of the most prominent voiceover roles you've done?
Well, you know what's funny? Like, you bring up Sagat, because I remember this happened maybe 3 years ago now. I'm walking down La Cienega Boulevard. I just left like this little nightclub, bar, restaurant, and I walked down the street, because it's a busy street, but it's not that busy at that time of night that I was walking down. And something made me turn around and go back because I wanted to go ask somebody something. All of a sudden, this guy jumped up between two cars. He was from TMZ. He goes, "Hey, Isaac C. Singleton Jr., you do the voice of God. Give us a tiger knee." I was like looking around like, where the heck did you come from? Because I just walked past here, and all of a sudden you just jump out between two cars. Where were you? Anyway, I did the tiger knee.
You did? Yeah, you got it to him.
But yeah, even Thanos. I mean, Thanos was fun. It still is, Josh Brolin got to do it for the movies. But I was so thankful to get it for the cartoons and the video games I've done. And I know the voices I did for it were just spot on because I know the character well, because he's just great. I think he's wonderful, and I even kind of sometimes defend his position as far as
really,
because I'm like,
I gotta hear this.
Because Thanos. Isaac Singleton doesn't believe this, but it's just funny to rationalize what Thanos is thinking.
Wait, before you go into Thanos' thinking, can we get a tiger knee in here right now? Oh.
Tiger knee!
Come on, what if I creep up behind you and jump up at you?
You were talking to him.
Do it again!
Tiger knee!
Thank you. I'm taking that with me. So talk to me about the views that Thanos had that you find yourself actually defending.
Well, people are like, he was evil, he's horrible. He wants to kill half the population. And I'm like, well, he's trying to make things better for the other half that's still here. Because if there's less people, less beings, then there's more things to go around. There's more resources, less pollution. All things are great then because there's not so many people mucking up the world and grubbing up and taking half of everything, or even more of their share.
So do you believe, like, have you been asked that actually in
Well, when people say,
in the
why does
past?
Thanos believe these things, I tell them why he believes these things. Now, Isaac Singleton Jr., he doesn't believe it, but Thanos does.
But you could rationalize
I
where
understand
he's
where he's
coming
coming from sometimes, yeah.
You know, it's funny. Sometimes I use Thanos as a symbol when I'm trying to teach the kids certain things.
Your kids or
yeah.
some kids in general?
My kids, yeah. No, I try to teach a lot of kids, but no, my boys, when we use him as an archetype in our home for someone who really does believe what he's doing is for the better of others, but he's actually doing something very destructive, and it's important to take a stand against people that sometimes really are trying to do the right thing, but what they're going to do is be very, very hurtful. So we use that lesson all the time in the house.
I see. You see that, but I also can differentiate because this is fantasy stuff, and I'm not a person who's like there's people that are like, don't let your kids play video games because they'll try to bring it into the real world and they'll start shooting up schools and all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. Maybe sometimes kids are affected that way. I don't know. I don't have children, so I would like to try to teach them what my parents taught us. They taught us about reality, about the consequences of your actions. So yeah, so Thanos, he's not real.
Yeah, but he's got such a great representation of actual people in this world that I
just think he's so funny because he's a megalomaniac in many ways.
Right.
He loves death. I don't even know that. He loves death. You don't know that? He's in love with her. Death is a person to him. And she is an entity that he really wants to try to impress. That's another reason why he wants to destroy half the population too. But there is one cartoon I did when he was attacking a city. And his line was like, "People of Earth, the shadow of Thanos darkens your world. Submit to my will or perish." You know? And what I thought was funny, because another line he said was like, "You Earthlings annoy me, but your screams of fear and confusion do amuse me. You may continue those." I just thought that was so funny.
That is beautiful. See, so yeah, I think more my exposure to Thanos isn't through the comics. It's through what Marvel did in the films, but the backstory you do see come out a little bit in the last one, Endgame, where when he finally realizes he's not going to reach his goal, that's where you see, well, fine, I'll kill them all. And at that point, you get to see, you're not really interested in saving the universe or saving anybody. You just want your way.
The megalomaniac aspect of it.
See, yeah. There's something there where in pursuing the good of others, you really can test if it's for their own sake, even at your expense, versus when you think you're pursuing the good of others. But a lot of times there's a lot of self stuff wrapped up in it. And one of the best, Dallas Willard would talk about this. He was a philosophy professor at USC. And that was one of the greatest litmus tests that went all the way back to like Aristotle is for true virtue, was when the good that you're pursuing on behalf of others is really for their own sake and their own flourishing, even at your own expense. So Thanos clearly is not doing that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people I don't think do that. Seriously. I mean, I've seen it in many people who think they're virtuous and doing the right thing for others, but they have something wrapped up inside it for themselves too. Even if it's only for the glory of saying, "Hey, I did that."
Right.
A lot of people want that.
Do you feel like that's mixed with almost everything we do? It's almost like not a question of if or not, but actually a question of degrees. So is anybody really doing anything out of pure motives, or is it a matter of degrees of like, oh, what I'm doing right now, I know that some of it's wrapped up in me, but I'm really trying to make as much of this about the flourishing and the well-being of the other, even if it costs me.
I can think of maybe a few people in history, because there's a lot of altruism out there. That's true. I can think of a few people in history who maybe really were doing it because they were trying to make it better for everybody. And I think about that speech Martin Luther King gave, and he was like, "I may not make it with you," because he knew he was being threatened a lot, and sure enough, he didn't make it to the promised land of everybody having the same rights, the same time, and all that kind of stuff. He didn't make it. He got assassinated. But I feel like he knew that I think he kind of knew that I might not make it. I think he knew that. He knew the kind of culture we were living in, and he didn't make it. It's just same with Gandhi. Gandhi didn't, he was doing all that stuff, letting them beat up on him. He was being nonviolent because he wanted things better for India and the people of India. And so much people who were poor and impoverished. He just wanted to make their lives better. He was trying to do the right thing and do it with speeches and philosophy.
Yeah, and there was all kinds of different viewpoints on how to go about doing that stuff. Martin Luther King Jr.'s was the most effective because he actually inspired others to live it out as opposed to imposing it on others. Like, it's Malcolm X is really, he had much more militant approach, but I don't know that his approach would have taken the long-lasting effect. But I'm not necessarily against the need for a militant approach at a certain point to say enough's enough.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really inspire the long-term hope that King Jr. did. And I almost kind of wonder if when you see revolutionaries in that sense, it starts personal. Like it starts from a place of personal hurt, personal experience.
Well, yeah, I would definitely say that because, usually when you want to start a revolution, that means you really got to change something because you're not liking what's going on. And that usually comes from a place when you've been downtrodden and beaten down to where you're like, look, it's time for me to get up and say something. I can't just be kept being steamrolled over by those and doing a status quo kind of a deal. And that's when you got to rise up and say, look, this isn't right because this is not right for everybody. It's right for you guys, but not for everybody. And let's make this society that's right for everybody. I think that's what happens in that situation. There's a lot of people who have altruistic motives, I believe. That's really do. And I think that's the bottom line is when it comes to something like you're talking about when it deals with revolutionaries, you get sick and tired of just being beaten down and just like, okay, well, you just got to take it because that's who you are and that's who you've been in our society. So there you go, take it. No, don't take it anymore. It's not right because it's not right.
That is the Rising. That is rise up. That's what we want. But then, like you said, there is, I think, a healthy dose of self-awareness that I think I'm looking at a culture that there's so many different causes now to fight for and believe in, and we'll talk about some of those tonight.
Okay.
But then I also see people wanting to fight for a cause or wanting to be revolutionary because they're looking for significance in their own identity. Like they're almost like, oh, if I do this, if I fight for this cause, if I take this stand, then it makes me significant. And there we're back to that.
That thing where it's not altruism. That's like, please, I helped make that happen, but focus a light on me because, hey, I had a hand in that. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I mean, don't you think that's happening right now in culture where, no, there really are people that are fed up and there are people that, no, we cannot tolerate this anymore. They're out there fighting for the belief, but there's a lot of people that join like, yeah, significance. Like, I'm going to be a part of
there's
something.
There's people who want to jump on a bandwagon all the time. But then again, let's boil our society down to junior high school. Because if we boil it down to junior high school, then it kind of can resonate with everybody. Think about it. You had these certain cliques. There were the cool kids over here. You had the nerdy ones over there, the ones that played athletics over there. Then you had the teachers who were, in a kid's mind, oh, they're the oppressors in many ways because they're always just telling us what we're doing wrong. Because you think about it, when you're junior high school, teachers like, act more adult. You shouldn't do that. Do this, that. But then they're at the same time, at the same sentence, they're like, but you're a kid, so you don't know what you're talking about. So am I a kid or am I supposed to act like an adult? So that's how society is now. People are like, well, one message is saying this, but this other message over here is saying this, and I want to rebel against both those messages because I want to do my own thing. That's pretty much what's going on in our world.
And then if you say something people don't like, they just dismiss you.
Well,
they just write you off.
Because, the cool kids will know, he's a nerd, don't talk to him.
Would you almost say that, like, if you look at social media in itself and, like, all the different platforms, and like, you'd almost just reduce it back to junior high?
Yeah. It bleeds over into high school, too, but still, that's just what it is. A lot of people never left high school as far as their mentality is concerned. And I know I've lived a lot of places growing up, and I remember when I've lived in Texas, I lived in Tennessee, I lived in Florida, I lived in Germany, and I can remember some places I'd lived, and you'd run into grown men in their 50s who were reminiscing about what happened at the football game in high school. That was the peak of their years. That was their peak, and I'm like, that was your peak? I'm not saying it to them because I don't want to hurt their feelings. If that's what they go back to, that was their happy moment. I'm like, wow, because I'm not even sure if I had my peak moments yet. I've had a lot of great moments in my life, and many of them way past high school. Since college, since my adult life, since my professional career, I'm still having moments that are like, man, that was great. But I've run into people who, they peaked in high school, and then the rest of the life was like, well, I got the wife and kids. That's great. Okay, but yeah, man, it's not like it was great in high school, man, when we were playing football and I was with my buddies.
The glory days, and now they're just surviving.
What was that song by Bruce Springsteen, right? Or no, was it Bruce Springsteen that had that song, Glory Days? Yeah, I think it was.
I don't know that one.
Okay.
I'm bad. Let's play it.
Anyway, he's singing about these people he knew in high school or whatever, and they go and they just talk about back then instead of what's happened since then.
Rather than living in the present, just living in your memories.
Yeah.
You mentioned the thing about kind of the way to say it, and I haven't really talked about this much, but I reflected on it, is I think that's what brought me out to Hollywood when I was in my early 20s, is that I wanted to come out here to reinvent myself. And in fact, I think I even had like an identity crisis with my name, and I like used 2 Ks because I just didn't want to spell my name Zach like it is, because I just was like Zach, like, and now I understand it, and it actually has.
So your
rich
name's not
meaning.
Zachary.
It is Zachary, but
okay, so
instead
it is
of
Okay.
really cool, interesting fact I learned when I went into seminary and I got to learn actual Hebrew is that the name. So everybody would always make fun of me in school of like, well, because there's other kids named Zack, and so why Zach? Why Zach? Why Zachary? And it actually turns out that the reason the CH is so important is because in Hebrew, in the Hebrew alphabet, there is a single letter called the chet, or the chet, and it's just one letter, but we transliterate it as a CH.
Okay.
And so that word in Hebrew is it's a Zion. It's a resh, and it's a Zion, chet, resh, and it's zachar, and it actually means to think of or to be considerate towards, to remind. It's the root word for memory, and to reflect on something. It's used all over the place for like God remembered such and such, or this person prayed and God was mindful of such and such. So anyway, once I learned the CH portion of it, I was like, I had a lot of pride in why it wasn't spelled the CK. But anyway.
But see, I like my name because my name is Hebrew also. And Isaac means laughter, or
yes.
he who laughed.
Now, why? Do you remember why?
Oh, I know the story about Sarah and Abraham, yes. Mm-hmm.
So was it laughter for joy that they're going to have a son?
No, it was laughter because she didn't believe.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. That's ironic.
Non-believer.
That's ironic that God takes the double entendre of the name and uses it, because there is laughter when they have him, But then there's also the irony that she doesn't trust the Lord.
Well, think of it this way, though. Because, I can see how people in even biblical times would be like we were here now. Your husband comes home. He's like, hey, honey, I know you're in your late 80s or whatever. You're not really way past your childbearing years. But I talked to God today. He said you're going to have a kid. She's like, yeah, all right. Okay. I don't know what kind of weed or milkweed you smoked out there in the field. But yeah, right. Thank you very much. No, we're not having a kid. So yeah. So you know how wives are now, and they were probably wives just like that back then too. They just don't believe everything the husband says just because he's a husband.
In fact, even in America right now, if anybody talked about anything supernatural, most people would probably just roll their eyes and think, "Oh man,
well,
you're
listen to the statistics.
weird."
The statistics still are more than most of the people in the country still believe there's a supernatural being, God. That's so. So I was listening to that on the news the other night. So more than half the country believes that, but Christian numbers are dwindling with the younger folk. But yeah, still more than half still believe. So yeah, I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was listening to the news about that just 2 days ago, as a matter of fact.
What were you listening to?
I listened to NPR.
Okay, and they said over 50%.
Oh, it's 65% right now.
But is that just like people checking boxes and just kind of owning the faith of their parents, or is that people?
They didn't get into the breakdown of the Christians as far as, okay, this is what they believe, or now they believe this because they're parents, but they were just saying that the Christian numbers are dwindling in our United States. They're not raising, and the younger generation doesn't believe the way their parents do, is what they would also bring it up in that story.
That is a fact. What I wanted to share that I don't talk about much, but I think it needs to be talked about, and I'd love to hear how you experienced it, because it sounds like when I'm hearing your entry into Hollywood, there's a lot of health in it, even the way that the Lord spoke to you and gave you vision for it. And honestly, awesome humility and gratitude for the opportunities that you were experiencing, the roles you're getting to play. Granted, you're acknowledging that you long for the moments where it's Isaac and...
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is what I envisioned when I decided to be an actor. Because, most people think, oh, yeah, name and lights and money and houses and travel and all that kind of good stuff like that. But I wasn't really doing it, to be honest with you. I've never really done it for the fame of it. I don't necessarily want to be famous. And the reason why I don't really want to be famous is I don't want to be people digging in my garbage and trying to find dirt and trying to constantly hound me and all that kind of stuff.
Changes your life.
I do this for the fun. I love the fun of it because it is so much fun to just make up a character and throw it out there and put it on, develop it and make it come to life, and then people believe it. People believe the character. I can't believe how many people I've had walk up to me. Like a friend of mine came up and punched me in the arm one time because he saw me in the movie Instinct with Anthony Hopkins and Cuba Gooding Jr. I was a poacher, and I was trying to shoot the gorillas that he was living with. And a friend of mine, oh, you were trying to shoot. I'm like, that was a character. You don't have to punch me.
And you usually play a lot of
I did another movie It was called Ready, Willing, and Able, and I did that before I moved to California. I did it in Florida. And the director of it was one of the directors I went to college with at UCF. Her name is Jenny Gold. Anyway, there's a scene where this guy, we're the good guys, and I grab this guy and I twist his neck and break his neck, right? And that was just scene to me. But we screened it down in Laguna Beach somewhere. And this kid comes up to me, he's like 7 or 8, goes, I liked it when you broke that guy's neck off. I'm like... So that's what impacted him about that movie, I
think a lot of people come to Hollywood, come to the entertainment industry because you're a big fish in a small pond, and you're told growing up in high school, maybe you do school theater, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you should go be an actor, you should go be an actor. Then you come here, and you are in a city of millions of people, the best of the world that have all come here, all told the same thing, and then 99.99999% of them, even if they get a successful career, aren't going to make very much money from that career. And I came here probably for the wrong reasons. I think I had taste of fun, successful opportunities. But it was on a set. We were shooting down in Cabo and doing the makeup chair, just like you said, doing the hair, sitting around watching all the setups and everything all day. And I think I had my own existential moment where I was like, I'm not doing this for the right reason. I mean, I'm actually succeeding, but I'm doing this because I really don't have confidence in who I am just for me. I'm trying to prove to all the people back home that made me feel rejected in junior high, that made me feel like I wasn't cool enough. It's almost like I'm trying to show them I'm cool enough. I'm trying to show them like, oh, see, you should have liked me. You should have dated me. You should have. and the funny thing is I would even go back home with like these really cool glory stories to where I came from, and it was fun. My friends still didn't care. They're like, whatever, jerk. I was like, oh man. And I realized, and I've found this in so many of my friends that I met trying to get into the industry. So many people come out here for the wrong reason. It's not about the work. It's not about the craft. It's about identity.
Yeah, well, like I said, I wasn't doing it for the fame. I came out here. Well, I told you why I got in the industry. I wanted to be a commodities broker. So, that's what I was going to be until God said, like, you're going to be an actress, so you got to listen to you. But, so yeah,
Tell me you do some financial stuff on the side, by the way, so we can.
I can tell you about my crypto. No, I'm just kidding.
We can talk about some crypto.
No, so I've gotten things that most people can't believe I got. And sometimes I just know why I got it. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the Lord upstairs, They got in a movie. So I moved out here, no agent. Nobody wanted me at the beginning. But like that movie I'd done before, that I told you I did, Ready, Willing, and Able, the lead actress was like, you need to move to California. So I'm moving out there next year. She said, well, when you get to California, I know I can have an agent when you get there. So I'll submit you on the breakdowns. You just submit me $50 a month. I'll submit you on the breakdowns and give me 10% whatever you get. Then next month you don't have to pay me. I'm like, okay, sounds good to me.
So she was your agent.
So she was my submitter. And that's how I got X-Files and started getting other things. And then had a friend of mine who I worked at Disney with who literally walked me in the back door of his agency for his commercial agency. And they met me and they said, okay, come in Monday. We'll meet with you. I said, okay. I met them that Monday and saw me that day. And so that was my first commercial agent. And I think that first year I got a Burger King commercial. I got cut into 5 different commercials. So that was great. So different things like that.
That was back in the day too, when getting a commercial like that, a national spot, man, that paid for what, 2 years more?
Well, not with my living expenses. No, I'm just kidding. No, that took care of me, and I was very thankful for that one. And yeah, I've been very thankful a lot of different times. But even when I got Pirates of the Planet of the Apes, I was working at Waterworld, like I said. And my buddies were like, man, you need to go try to be a stunt guy on Planet of the Apes because they're hiring stunt guys. I'm like, yeah, but I want to be an actor on it, not a stunt guy. They're like, man, but they're hiring. It's going to be good money. I'm like, okay, I'll go. So I went over to Rick Baker's studio that he had over in Glendale area. And there were like 300 guys over there. And they had us line up in a long line. And him, Rick Baker, and Tim Burton went down the line, picking people out of the line. And they picked me out of the line, straight to makeup to get my head cast. You know what I mean by getting your head cast?
Yes.
They cover your face in this goop and cover it with that like mummy-looking material. It hardens, and you got to be still. You're barely breathing in, thinking they got 2 little holes in your nose.
Straws.
And so you just got to not be claustrophobic and get that done. And so then I went to my commercial agent and said, look, I'm on the movie, but would you call them and see if I can get a theatrical role in the film? She go, okay, Isaac, but they don't have a script yet. So they say when they get a script, they'll call us. So sure enough, when the script was made,
for that.
The script was made. They called me like, Isaac, I want you to come in and audition for a role now. I said, okay, great.
Oh, you're kidding me. Oh, that is so great.
I already knew I was already on the movie as a stunt guy. Then they called me in to come and audition for a role. And then they called the next day and saying we want him to be in this role. And I ended up getting 4 roles because then they had to send me back to Rick Baker's office to redo my makeup again now because I was going to be a #1 makeup. So there's a difference in the stunt guys had like a mask that articulated and everything like that. It looked pretty good. But the #1 makeup were like that's where the camera's close on you and the muscles on your face move with the makeup. You got the teeth in, you got the voice, and I had the voice, and I had the movement, I had the body. And so I got 4 characters, and I played 4 characters in the movie and ended up doing that.
How did you change your voice between the 4 characters? Like, how did you play?
It doesn't have to change very much. They want the deep resonance. I was playing a gorilla, so they want that deep resonance. Why are you laughing?
Well, oh, jeez. Okay, I'm already going to start tweeting apologies now. I'm just going to preemptively put out apologies.
Yeah, they're all gorillas, and it's funny because one scene, this other actor I was with, almost every scene I'm in, he's in. His name is Kevin Grievous. He's got a grovelly, deep voice also. And there's one scene where Tim Roth's character, who's playing Thade, we show him where this spaceship crashed in the bog, right? That's where Mark Wahlberg came from. He's like, did you tell anybody else about this? And we're like, no, we didn't tell anybody. So as he's walking by, he kind of drags his finger across my neck and goes behind us. And we're just kind of looking at the bog, and he pulls out these 2 weapons, like they look like shurikens or throwing stars. He jumps on our backs and just beats us and kills us and throws us into the bog. Then that scene ends, and it's me and that same actor again playing 2 other characters. And what happened is the humans have escaped from out of the cages, and they're kind of hiding in the city. And he and I are walking along, and he's like, you smell that? And I'm like, don't start. I'm starving. We're off duty, kind of a deal. We're going, and they're hiding in the shadows. We didn't see him. And, it's like, there we are again. But, the audience doesn't know. They just got to put a little more gray in our beard and put us in a different costume. No one's like, hey, that looks like Isaac Singleton Jr., which I'm glad it didn't. But, hey.
So when you talk about the work that it goes into doing the makeup for these types of roles, talk about how you got into the voiceover acting, because you have, again, I took the deep dive, and man, I'm blown away at what you've done.
All right, this is how this happened. I started doing voiceovers when I was in college. I took a theater course in college, and then that kind of sent me in the direction. And that's when God showed me the signs. That's what I was supposed to be doing. I played a character who's called the Bad Man in a play called The Bad Man. And then also some other theater productions would come in and say, hey, would you do the voice over for this dance troupe or whatever? I'm like, sure, I'll do that. What the heck? And it was fun. I just got a chance to do it. Then when I got to University of Central Florida, other people would ask me to come do voiceovers for them for their little projects or whatever. So that was fun. And I did some local commercials there. I remember I did a commercial where there was a dog sitting in the car. I think it was a husky, and he was talking about car air conditioning service. And I did the voice of the dog. And then, now this is what's going to make people mad if they hear this part of the story. Because when I moved to Los Angeles, I was doing voiceovers here and there with nothing major. But one day I was at lunch with a friend of mine, and the guy at the table behind me goes, hey, do you do voiceovers? I hear your voice. I'm like, yeah, I do voiceovers. He said, look, I'm doing this. I've got this cartoon. It's called Helsing. And I'm looking for this character to play Incognito. He's the oldest vampire in the world. Would you mind coming and reading for that? I'm like, no, I don't mind reading for that at all. I ran and read for that. I got the voice of Incognito for that. It was a Japanese anime. Got the voice of Incognito.
Yes.
Then he started calling his buddies who were doing independent little, cartoons or whatever, and say, hey, you ought to listen to this guy. So I started doing voiceover for those guys, and they started introducing me to their guys who were doing little things. So I started doing voiceovers with these people. And then I was taking classes with this guy named Ivan Markota, who's not here on planet Earth with us anymore. But Ivan said, you know what? I'd already done Planet Apes at this point. I'd already done Pirates of the Caribbean at this point. And Ivan goes, you know what? You need a better agent. So I'm going to send your stuff to these different agents in town. He sent my stuff to ICM, William Morris. They didn't call me in at all. But Abrams Artists, they called me and said, hey, would you come and have a meeting with us? I'm like, sure, I'd be happy to come have a meeting. They said, hey, look, we don't want to rep you theatrically, but would you come in our voiceover department? I said, yes, please. Thank you very much. And I signed with them. And then that's when I started getting even more stuff like the World of Warcraft. Like I've done 40 voices alone for World of Warcraft alone.
You were the original World of Warcraft too, like, right? You did 40 voices?
I've done 40 voices over the years.
Okay.
I mean, from elves to ice giants to dragons, orcs. I mean, I've done all kinds of stuff for them.
I couldn't believe how much of my own youth experience and how much of my own, like, growing up in video games and everything. Like, dude, you've been a part of so many of the things that I've done.
I mean, my favorite character for them is probably Stitches. I do the voice of Stitches. I don't know if many people know who Stitches is. He's like a 7-foot-tall zombie. He's got a belly that can eat you, and he's also got an arm with a hatchet, one arm with a cleaver, and then he's got an arm that grows out of his back, and the arm out of his back, I think it has like a scythe, a kind of circular shaped blade, or half circle shaped blade. Anyway, his line is, "Stitches want to play. Will you play with Stitches?" I do his voice. That's fun. Then I got to do Transformers. I got to do the voice of Soundwave. That was great. And there's been so many games. Like sometimes I even forgot that I did the voice. Like, I mean, there's so many of them I've done. I'm not to sound cocky or like dismissive. But there's many voices I've done that I just, oh yeah, I did do that voice. Didn't I?
You worked on many of these projects. You did Dungeons and Dragons. You have worked with Laura Bailey as a voiceover actress in some major roles in these.
But see, like, but when I go do these things, I'm alone, so I didn't meet Laura.
See, that's what I wanted to ask you is, what is it like when you're going into the studio to do the voices? Do you get to interact with any of the other talent or see what they're doing live?
Well, okay, let's put it this way. I did World of Warcraft one time, and they had like 7 or 8 guys in the room. It was a room that's bigger than this room we're in now. Probably the room was probably about 30 by 50 or no, 30 by 70 size room. And all of us had our own microphones, and sometimes we had to walk past the microphone and do our different thing. We did a lot of orc voices and stuff that day. It was fun.
Wait, give me an orc voice.
I came here to do this. I've given you a couple of free voices already, but I do this for the money.
I love you.
Yeah, let's throw a free voice out for everybody. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, but just orcs are just very guttural and let's kill the humans. Just I don't know. It's just fun.
That's so awesome.
You just get to make up voices, and I mean, like for instance, Blizzard. They have World of Warcraft. They have Diablo. They got several different. I guess you could say games they run that you pay monthly subscription to, and they make a good amount of money monthly off of those games. It's great. Congrats to them. So I've been invited down to Blizzard a few times to do voiceovers at their studios there. And I remember there's been times when I've gone in and not said a single word and done several characters for them. Because they're not always singing. They're always sometimes just creature voices. So I go in and do a creature voice. And so I get there and they'll say, okay, we got 3 voices for you today. We got 3 creatures. And I said, okay, can I see what they look like? And they'll show me what they look like. I say, okay, I think that thing sounds like this. They're like, yeah, it does. Okay, that's great. See, they don't know. These guys are programmers. They don't know what it sounds like. They want me to bring in the act. They want me to bring in what it sounds like. So I'll make up 3 voices for them, and then we'll go with the one that's the least taxing on my throat last, and we'll do the other ones first, and we'll do the last one last, and then we get the voices done, and it's great.
How long can you go for when you're doing all the different noises and almost ADR type stuff?
I mean, usually the sessions are 4 hours when I go down there. Okay. So, just split it up amongst them. But a lot of times it's not like where I'm going to tear myself up that badly. I think the one that probably tore me up the most was probably doing Soundwave because, it's like, Autobots are coming. You got to keep that going. And it's like, that's the back of your throat kind of stuff.
You talk like that most of the time, though, that I experience you. So
the Autobots are coming. Yes. Look out.
The trip is that what you have the privilege of doing that, oh my goodness, 20 years ago, that was not, I don't think that was that appealing. People didn't think, oh, I want to do this. And now, once Pixar and all these animated movies just start hitting, you see all these actors going, yeah, I want to do that and make thousands to millions of dollars. I don't have to put makeup. I don't have to do hair. I could show up on my PJs.
Which no one does. I mean, I hear that all the time. You don't have to wear anything when you go do makeup. You don't go to do voiceover. You can show up in your PJs. But no, they kind of want me to show up in my clothing there too. I mean, I'm not in my PJs going in there doing Soundwave's voice. No.
But it sure is a lot easier than all of the...
You know what? It's not necessarily, because when you're doing voiceovers, you got to bring everything that character is doing to the voice itself. When you're doing acting, now you can see my emotions. You can see me emote, and you can see me move. You can see my body do certain things. So my body is doing the acting a lot of times too with the voice along with it. But whenever you're doing a voiceover,
that's great.
The acting is even more intense. So you got to make sure that acting is coming through and just the voice alone.
That's great. What were some of your most favorite characters to play then overall, the career that you've done voiceover acting? What would you say?
We talked about him a little while ago. Thanos is probably one of my most favorites. I just love it because you get to say some of the stuff that the good guys just can't say, and it's so much fun to say it. The way he says it with that attitude, I love it. Yeah, he's just funny. He's comedic. He's very serious. He's got all these different layers. Yeah, Thanos is something else. Yeah, he's wonderful.
So I know you do, a lot of voiceovers and a lot of the character stuff. But you're talking about the longing to just play your own acting roles, not because it's a caricature. And recently, you just starred in a film called Wake Up, where you play the police officer.
Yeah, I'm playing a detective who's trying to break up a sex trafficking ring.
Tell me a little bit about how you got involved in that project and what that experience was like.
A person I've known for a few years called me up and said, hey, we're going to do this film. I thought you'd be right for it. Would you read the script and see if you're interested? I'm like, sure. So I read it, and I definitely was interested. And then I talked to the director, this has been a passion project for hers for about 8 to 10 years now.
Janet
she wrote
Craig.
The movie. Yeah, her name is Janet Craig, and she wrote it. And the thing is there is a lot of this going on right now in the world, in the United States and around the world, where people are being snatched up, young kids, and sold into sex slavery. And it's happening now. It happens every day, and it's not a good thing. It's horrible. And my character, if you saw him, he's kind of like, he doesn't smile very much because he feels like, I wanted to play him like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. I wanted to play him kind of like a Death of the Salesman, kind of like downtrodden, but trying to do the right thing and get things going and succeed in the end. But this never ends.
Is you feeling a defeat in his face all through
Yeah, it's just film. Like the disgust in it, knowing what's going on and trying to stop it,
One of the things that really stood out to me watching you in that role was Subtlety. And I was really impressed by the level of subtlety and restraint in the character that you played. It wasn't over the top. It was it was just very small moments in your face of, Can we do any spoilers if we put a spoiler alert on that, or should we not?
I don't know how many people are going to go rush out and see it that's listening to your podcast. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of people that you're reaching right now. But even if you saw the way I walked in the movie, it wasn't a zippy, happy-go-lucky walk. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't walking like, oh, yeah, this is great. No, I wanted to make sure that my weight of my shoulders on my shoulders. I was kind of hunched over. I was just like, like I said, I smiled once in that movie, and that was when I was talking to a certain character and saying I can get him a deal, and I think he did the right thing for what he did. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I was not smiling because I wasn't. Right. It's not a happy thing.
No.
And a detective who wants to solve it, he's not happy. He's trying to find these poor kids,
Before I talk about a very significant thing that I experienced in watching the film, mm-hmm. just to kind of give the context for the film itself, Janet, the director, was a foster care parent for how many kids is she actually? I think like
Did she
100.
say 100? I thought it was 17 or 18. I don't know. I don't know the number.
It's a huge number, and then it was her. I think it was one of her foster care daughters that took her to a seminar, and then she got her eyes opened up to the sex
The other stuff,
trafficking.
yeah. Unfortunately, it happens a lot to kids who go to foster care too, or have been through the foster care system. It's just sad all the way around, to be honest with you. And to think that grown people will try to make money off of that. It's just sick to me, but
There's at the end of the film, they obviously have one of the rescued girls that the film is largely based on. Although I believe Janet didn't want to give out her name and jeopardize her or anything like that. But you get to talk, and it's interesting. Even she's looking at you with tears, saying, "Wake up."
Yeah.
Like, wake up, this is happening, and nobody's doing anything. And when I looked at, so your character, spoiler alert, your son is actually the culprit. He's the one that is...
he's part of a ring in the city.
Yeah.
That I'm doing. But there's a whole backstory to him and I, too, and our characters in the movie that you don't really hear about until the end of the movie.
Well, you don't even really see. That was the interesting part, is that you don't really know what it is that you did that drives your wife to suicide and his mom to suicide. You don't know, but so there's this really cool contrast in the film that really meant a lot to me. Is at the end, it becomes so crystal clear that your character has a very shattered past, and that there's a lot of brokenness between you and your son, and even what your son's doing now, blaming you, and who knows what you did. But you've taken that, and you are fighting for the redemption and the rescue of these girls. Whatever your past has been, whatever you failed at in the show, in the backstory of your character, you are fighting in the present for the redemption of these girls. But there's another really great character in the film, the neighbor, and he's addicted to porn.
Yeah,
and you guys,
he's not just he's a prominent figure in the society. I mean, he's a doctor.
That's right. He goes to your church in the show, right? Like, you guys go to the same church. He's very reputable and well-to-do. Yeah. And so, but he's
a family man. He's got a wife. He's got a daughter. Yeah.
Secret porn addiction, which is very common. And then eventually he decides, everybody's looking for the kidnapped or missing girl from the foster care, and he goes to pay to have sex with an underage girl, and he comes across her in the film, and it's her. Yeah. And he recognizes it, and at that moment, he has a rude awakening, and he runs out, and then he basically nearly commits suicide in his own just disillusionment of what he's done and who he's become and everything. But this is the moment that gets me, is this scene probably was the most powerful scene for me. He's in the hospital, and his perfect wife, life, he's the doctor. She comes in, and she's like, "Why would you do this to yourself?" And it's like, it's in this moment, what are you going to do? And he actually tells her the truth of what he did. He confesses what he did. And in that confession, he actually tells her he knows the location of the girl. Like, he knows where she's at. And here's this wife, and she's like, "Do you know what you've done to our family?" And she goes home, and she's screaming into a pillow. And then her decision, her action, is she basically goes to her neighbors who are missing the foster care daughter, and she takes her child back from them babysitting her, and she keeps it to herself. And that as a juxtaposition to your character in the film, who, whatever your past is, you're actually out there fighting for what is good and right for these girls, even against your own son.
And boys. But yeah.
And that's right. And that was in the film too. And yet here's this prominent Christian couple represented in the film. And even when the guy is willing to confess the level of depravity that he went to, they decide to keep it quiet because they don't want to jeopardize their reputation. And
that's happening a lot now across the country too. So, yeah.
I feel like you said this earlier about when you were talking about Martin Luther King Jr., and you're talking about a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. There is a cry in the heart of people for revolution. There is a cry, but this was a great example, especially from Christians. Why do so many people remain quiet?
Because the bottom line is they like the status quo. That's it. They don't want to change things. They don't want to make things look different. They like the status quo and like the things the way they are, especially if you're a certain position in society. That's the bottom line. They don't want to see any change, and they definitely want to see change for the better, especially if it's going to affect their life.
See, that's the thing about affecting their life. I think people do want change. I don't think they are willing to let it cost them to see that change affected. Because if you do speak up and it's not popular, I mean, the church will chase all kinds of popular bandwagons and all kinds of stuff. But when it's not popular, you risk, honestly, losing your reputation. You risk getting canceled. You risk...
But, it's sad, though, to think about it this way. Like you said in the movie, this guy tried to kill himself is what he tried to do. He got found in time where he lived. Then he tells his wife what he had done, and he tells his wife where this girl who really needs help to be rescued is. And like you said, the wife would rather just keep it quiet because in her Christian mind, I guess she's like, well, it doesn't affect me. I'm not the one kidnapped. So, hey, let's just get our daughter back and just try to salvage our family. You can look at it that way. But, even when how you hit on with the son thing, because, this son of mine, he's into this sex activity. Yeah, he gets this whole rant at the end of the movie where he's like, are you mad? He's angry because of what happened with his mom. This happened back when he was he's still like a young teenager when this all happened with his mother, and his mother, the backstory, his mother cheated on me. I cheated on her. We didn't have the greatest marriage. And then when it finally broke apart, she just decided that she was going to check out of life. So it wasn't either one of ours fault. I was a police officer doing my thing. It's probably not home a lot and out there, trying to solve crime and doing what I do at the job, which means that family life suffered. And she was suffering because she didn't have her husband there. So, hey, she went off and found somebody else. And, okay, wife did that. Okay, I did the same thing. So what? But now this is years later. But this kid, this son of mine, still is holding on to that because he's looking at his mom through rose-colored glasses, I guess, and trying to remember the great things. But there wasn't so great things in the past. But I've evolved and gone on.
He's projecting it all on you.
And he wants to blame somebody, so who is the best person to blame? Me.
Do you...
so that's that,
Do you get to... Have you gotten to play a lot of father characters?
No, I have not played a lot of father characters, no.
What was it like playing that? Like, how did you experience that, playing that character? Because even what you described right there, and you give me the backstory, I'm like, oh, man, that's like...
Well... My thing was, I was like, once again, it's the character and the moment. And in that moment, this son is finally ranting and angry. And I'm just listening to it. Part of it's kind of like daggers stab me at the same time. But at the same time, I'm like, so rationally, you're going to go and destroy someone else's life just because you're angry at what happened in your youth? That's just, to me, that's not even logical. How that you can take what happened with you, your mom, and I when you were a kid. You've harbored this anger for all these years. You've left the home. You're not in contact with me because you want to blame me for what happened to your mother, but you want to go and destroy people's lives before they even begin when they're still teenage kids. That's what I'm thinking at the same time. He's ranting and raving about mom committing suicide and all this kind of stuff. Because there's no excuse for that. Because my character would be like, there is no excuse for that kind of activity.
That's what comes out of your face in that moment. It's like it's a disgust. You said disgust. There's like disappointment in that moment.
Yeah, because my line to him, he's sitting there with his arm shot and he's getting taken care of. I'm like, I don't even know what to say to you right now, And then that's he wants to go off on. But I really didn't know what to say to him because part of you, trying to tell him. As you saw the interaction between the movie, I'm trying to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk.
Right.
He doesn't want to hear reason. None of the time.
Yeah, even earlier, you're trying to have the conversation.
You didn't know who he is earlier. You don't even know who he is earlier in the movie when I talked to him. But
he wasn't listening. He's not.
Never wanted to listen. He was hard-headed.
Take that into the real world right now, and you're looking at the fragmentation of a society that just wants to sweep things under the carpet that really matter on so many levels, and there's so many issues, but yet people just want to pretend that we're just going to keep moving on, and it's not as bad as you say it is. And
yeah.
What do you do with that?
All I can do is just shake my head and just look at the irony of it and think, that's just sad. But I look around our country and there's certain things that are happening that just sadden me too, though. Like I look at our politics and it just makes me shake my head too. Shakes my head because there's some of the things that comes out of people's mouths and it's different things that are being enacted in the laws that are just that's just sickening to me. Like you want to talk about the status quo type of thing still. Now they've gotten several states in our country have now enacted laws to make it harder to vote than it is easier to vote. And they're saying, "Oh, we're doing this to save voting." You're not. You're trying to make sure that certain people don't vote because they don't vote the way you want them to vote.
People are afraid either because they're too complacent and they want to keep their comforts and they want to escape into just the pursuit of happiness, whatever makes them happy in their own little ecosphere, in their own little house and family and whatever they envision. And yet there are these atrocities that are going on. And we're going to talk about a couple of issues that are close to your heart, but the sex trafficking from the movie, I cannot believe how few even Christians get involved in this. That's why I loved the name of the movie, Wake Up, because they're just appealing to the audience. And then they're even saying text wake up to this number, get informed. And I've heard this, we have a mutual friend, Scott, and he has told me for a long time how sex trafficking is one of the biggest issues right in front of our face. It's happening. We know it's happening, and very few people are doing anything about it.
Yeah, that's true. People know it's happening, but at the same time, if it's not happening to them or their family, they're like, which is kind of the indifference. There's a lot of people who care. There's a lot of people who are just like, is that really happening? I didn't see it, kind of a deal. But it's not in your face. It's not like you see it happening like that.
Until it happens to you.
It's not like someone smashing a window in your car in your neighborhood and you stole the radio out of it. That happens, and everybody in the neighborhood goes, "Oh, you just got your radio stolen? That's too bad." But sex trafficking is something that happens so swift and quick. And you don't even know. I mean, you don't know if the kid ran away. You don't know. There's a lot of unknowns about it. So people are like, oh, maybe they just ran away. You know, they want to make it seem like, oh, the kid's fine. They just took off and don't want to be around you or your family anymore, that kind of stuff. So people want to come up with excuses, I believe, also.
But even on a societal level, like I just feel like we could put so much more attention to it. In fact, I think just yesterday, a whistleblower allegedly leaked some documents that the FBI is actually, they're getting defunded with the budget that pursues investigating sex trafficking and sex criminals. And this just came out yesterday. I haven't fully looked into it, but I was like, no kidding.
That's weird because, like, even whenever I hear defunding any kind of a force like police or FBI, that's the opposite direction you should be going in. You should give them more funding so they can get better training and better equipment and get better things to make society better, not worse. You know what I mean? Because if you defund it, then that's less people being protected. That's my opinion.
It just feels like there's not enough attention being given to it, and it feels like there's not enough efforts being done when it's like, you know, when you get into certain political issues or certain political debates, there's two different, you know, sides. Who is the victim? Who's this? But in this one, it's like, I don't think anybody's arguing that this is a black and white victim. There's no argument here over the atrocity that it is, and yet very little is being done. Although in the film, there's a few nonprofits that are helping it. Forever Found is one of the organizations that helped, and they have a organization here in California that seeks to get girls out of being trafficked or out of the porn industry, and then helps rehabilitate them. So they do that locally, but have you ever heard of a ministry called AIM? Agape International. Oh my gosh, I got to tell you about this one. These guys, so they're out of Roseville, Northern California, Sacramento, and they started in Cambodia, and they actually work with what do you call a SWAT team. They sent SWAT team in, and the SWAT team started working with the government, got permission from the government to find out where the brothels are, where these girls are being held, and then they will literally break into the brothels at gunpoint. And it's a Christian ministry too. They will break into the brothels at gunpoint, hold the traffickers at gunpoint, and they'll take all the girls out, put them in a van, and drive them out, and then they actually help them pay for whatever legal fees and things they need to do to actually try their traffickers so they can get criminally prosecuted in the court. And the Cambodian government actually lets them do this, except they were working with the local police.
The traffickers were.
The AIM, the SWAT team, was working with the local police, and they started experiencing occasions where the brothels were getting tipped off, and they'd get in there, and the police were totally in on it.
Yeah.
And so
that's why I said that.
Yeah. They got permission from the government to not work with the police anymore and to do it without them. And ever since they stopped working with the local police, no tip-offs. They haven't had a tip-off since. So they're actually starting, I believe, in Belize. They're going to set up another operation. And they even have, similar to Forever Found, they have kind of a rehabilitation facility in Roseville where they'll bring a lot of these girls out, and they'll just take them through lots of therapy, lots of unconditional love. They'll even give them opportunities for college education, learning trade crafts. So because they realize that once they get them out, if they don't do anything to help them, the girls will go right back in.
They have no skills.
They don't have, So part of getting them out is the long-term discipleship that has to go along with it. But
because it's more than just rescuing somebody. These people still have to live a life, pay bills, and all that kind of stuff. They need money. or make something to get a skill where they can make money without using their body to make the money with. So, yeah.
You were going to tell me about the political concern of voting that basically tell me your perspective on what is being done to suppress voter rights and voting.
They've enacted laws in several states. The states seem to be red for some reason. That it makes it harder for minorities to be able to vote, and they've done it by they'll put things in the law like, okay, you got to show your license, or you got to show identification, or you can't do drive-up voting, all these different things that made it easier for people to vote in the past. And they noticed that most of the people that don't have access to an identification or don't have access to be able to actually go and get their IDs or these paper that they're looking for, or even the simple thing of being able to drive up and vote instead of waiting in line, because a lot of people can't work. They got to work and they don't have time to go do this, tend to be the minorities, because the minorities are the ones that are having to scrape and get by, and they don't have time to wait in line for an hour or two to go and vote someplace or whatever. So it's easy for them to just, hey, fill out my ballot, drop it in the ballot box. They've made up these laws, and they make it seem like, oh, we're trying to make sure that they're right. Oh, we're trying to make sure that there's no fraud in voting. But even this last election, they kept saying, oh, there was fraud. This election wasn't stolen. As a matter of fact, the red states are the ones that he lost in. And they went back, and like in Arizona, they went back and recounted the votes, found out he had even lost by even a larger margin. They still try to say, oh, it was stolen somehow. And so it's just weird how people want to believe this fairy tale that he lost the election, because this is the United States of America. There's not, all these different states weren't in cahoots with each other saying, hey, even though we're red, let's make sure he doesn't win this election. No, that's not, because even the people that were running the election were Republican. They knew that he lost. And we had some people who were true Americans who stood up and said, yeah, our voting was true, and there was no problem with the voting machines, nothing at all. He lost. But the man couldn't admit that he lost. That's the problem with happened. So okay. Since then, people are like, oh, we need to make it harder for these people to vote then, because that's what's happened. They just want to make it harder for people who vote, because people woke up and like, you know what? I see what's going on. I need to go to the voter ballot and definitely cast my vote, because this is not right, because what's happening is not helping me out at all in this country. So people got up and voted. Now they don't want them to be able to vote. That's what's happening.
So first of all, I want to set the table for what I'm about to say, because I do think when Trump lost Arizona, it was truly a sign of his defeat, because you should have never lost Arizona, and you lost Arizona not because I think you needed to, but because how you run your mouth and how you tick off your own supporters and your own base and the people in your own constituency. How did you lose? Well, you offended the McCains. How did you lose Arizona? That becomes a point of like, okay, yeah, I don't think there's a contest here to say that you should have won the election, but there's a lot of examples that are very, very fishy surrounding the election that has caused, I don't think conspiracy theorists, but I think legitimate voters in America to go, yeah, I don't trust the election system right now. I think that it's not trustworthy anymore. I mean,
well, when you got somebody who is a government official yelling out, you can't trust the election anymore, then people start not trusting elections anymore.
I don't think they were doing it because somebody was shouting like that. At least
that's where I think so, because when he lost, but then all of a sudden, next thing you got Rudy Giuliani running all over the country trying to change judges' minds and trying to make up stuff. They made up fake electors, which they admit to. Fake electors who were going to go to Washington and say, oh, no, we're going to say that he didn't lose. I mean, come on.
I don't condone or support some of the asinine voices that are representing people in this country. And by the way, I really want to say this because it's really important. And this is part of why I think the dialogue is so important, is it actually grieves me that people on both sides of an issue can't get good representatives to represent their beliefs in the issue. And I feel this for people from the ideological perspective that I don't agree with. It's like, I feel bad for you when your candidates that you have to vote for are a major compromise to the beliefs that you hold. They're a major compromise to the agendas that you want forwarded in the country. No, I don't want those agendas forwarded in the country. But they're a compromise. They're bought. And you can feel it. You feel like a sellout even voting for them, but you're voting at that point, I guess, for the lesser of two evils. And it's so sad that it always comes down to, we feel like we have to vote for the lesser of two evils. So
that is sad to feel that way, for sure.
And that I genuinely, that frustrates me. Equally, it frustrates me when there are people that work so hard to get people into office to push the agendas, and then those people won't push the agendas, and then the people that are representing you are saying stupid things. I don't want to condone any of that. I care more about the issue. But, okay, so if you believe that this is a way of suppressing any group of people's vote, but specifically minorities and people that are economically having a hard time.
Which are the ones whose voice need to be heard the most, because they're the ones that need the help the most.
What's the solution to be able to secure their vote and their voice while at the same time ensuring the legitimacy of the process that people are coming not to trust?
Well, one would be great. One great thing is if we had a national voting day where everybody got off work to go vote if they wanted to and got paid for it. Just turn it into a holiday. Or make the voting not Tuesday, but how about Saturday or Sunday? You know?
That's a good idea.
I mean, because then everybody can vote. Because, you know, most people still work on Saturday and Sunday too, but it would be great if it would be like, okay, on your way to church, you can drop your ballot off or whatever, you know? Or just say national holiday. Let's call it Patriots Day or something. And everybody gets to vote. They get a day off. They get a paid day off, 3-day weekend, get a paid day off, and they go vote, you know, and then they get to go do whatever they need to do that day.
Now, if that existed, would you have any problem with whatever security checks could be required for those same people to have to at least identify that they're legitimate voters? They're not voting twice. They're not voting 3 times. They're not mailing in. Yeah,
well, but here in California, they do it great. We don't have any real problem. I mean, I don't feel like anybody voted several times here or whatever. You know, I know whenever I go vote, even when I've gotten my ballot in the mail, I take it with me to the voting place. I see them rip it up right there in front of me because I vote in person too.
See, I go in person, do it.
I bring it with me, but they also have a check where they can see whether or not I signed up and voted in person or whether or not they send in a ballot. So,
see, one of my neighbors, literally, their son took the ballot before they could even do it, filled out, and voted for Kanye West and sent that in. Kanye West got a juke vote from a legitimate neighbor of mine, and it's like, that I watched that happen. Like I didn't see the kid do it, but I knew right after the next day that happened. That is a vote that shouldn't even count for Kanye because the kid's not even old enough to vote, but it just happens to be a mail-in ballot and he goes ahead. If that's happening, and that happened like 2 doors down, how can that not happen on a major scale?
So in other words, this kid registered to vote and he got a ballot?
No, he took his mom's ballot and he mailed it in on her behalf.
So it was a legitimate ballot.
It was a legitimate ballot.
Just her ballot, not his. Not
Yeah, he took it and sent it in with her thing. But again, you know, you could have people stealing people's ballots. You could have, obviously that vote wasn't ID checked. I mean, that's fraud on a certain level because the kid is committing fraud, voting in his mother's name, but nevertheless, that happened. And how do you ensure that things like that don't happen without disenfranchising people in our country whose voice needs to be heard from any side of an ideological issue.
I have not seen. So did you report this kid to the FBI?
No.
Why?
Oh man, I don't trust the system and what they do to kids.
Okay. I mean, because you know a crime happened. Did his mom report it?
No.
Okay. No. Did she call in and say, "Hey, look, my mail-in ballot isn't valid because someone else sent it in"?
No.
So okay, so if no one's even checking, no one's doing the right thing that know they're supposed to do the right thing, then how's it going to work then?
I love the push, because there's even a conviction there. I love the push to the individual responsibility. I really appreciate that moment right there.
Well, I mean,
it's really good.
You know what really upset me also? I remember, well, I come from a perspective of a man who is considered a minority in our country. Yeah, sir, there's only 19% of the country that have my skin tone, which is great, so fine. But it's weird because 19%, and I hear these people are like, hear like a football player say his views on politics, or a basketball player, and some idiot we're like, "Oh, you're just a football player. Just shut up and dribble, or shut up and play football." Well, then I look at them like, well, what? So your opinion matters more than this guy's? Why don't you shut up and go back and do your hamburger flipping or whatever it is you do? Or even if you're the CEO of a major corporation, why don't you just shut up and go back in your office and push papers and downtrodden your people that work for you again? You know, no, everybody's vote counts and everybody's opinion counts. That's the funny thing about it. But it's just sad where some people feel like just because somebody's making millions of dollars a year and they play basketball or football, they don't have an opinion about politics. They shouldn't say anything about what they believe. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's because they're a minority. They just don't want to hear what a minority has to say. And no one says that out loud, but that's true.
Can I ask you some questions about that? Because you know how I feel about you.
Well, I don't play basketball or football.
Well,
so,
no, but you are very successful, and you are a minority. And what is your experience like that when you're looking at all of the debates concerning, racial institutional racism? What is your experience in light of your perspective?
What is my experience?
What is your personal experience? And then from your vantage point, what's your perspective on the way that it's being talked about? And I want, the reason I'm phrasing the question, Isaac, the way that I am is because I feel like there's so many people talking, there's not enough people listening, and I'm sitting in this incredible opportunity right now to listen to somebody that I deeply respect, share your views with me, and I'm actually like, I want to learn from you right now. Like, I want to learn what you think.
All right, well, it's funny because it even goes back to Christianity for me sometimes, and I think about things. Here's an example. A couple of years ago, a friend of mine invited me to come down to Mississippi with her. Her husband had gotten killed in a plane crash that happened down there. Now, I know it's so funny that the Christians in our country just think we just think, wow, we're Christians, we're the best, we're so noble and all this kind of stuff. Well, I look at Christianity sometimes, I understand what Gandhi's meant when he says, I don't have a problem with Christianity, some of the Christians have a problem with. And I understand exactly what he's talking about. So here's an example of this. So, there's certain states in our country where we just know there's certain kind of people that live down there that have certain attitudes about who should be together, who shouldn't be together, who should interact together. And unfortunately, that's just our country. And some people are just still holding on to what was going on in the Civil War and before then. And so they say, "Oh, I'm a good Christian."
And you believe that is still present.
It is still present. Not about a belief. It is present. It's not gone away at all. It has not gone away at all.
Has it gotten better?
I would say it's been better. It's better than it was probably in the 60s or the 50s when they were just like kill somebody and be like, okay, that's it's just a black guy that killed him, so what, Then when you started focusing on what police were doing, and they're like, okay, they can't just shoot these guys in the back while they're running away or whatever, and say, oh, they were criminals, shot him, so what? So that's where differences. But here's the story I was going to tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
So we go down there, and they had these host families that would kind of like take us around or whatever. Anyway, they had they had different people that would read up with the Gold Star families whose loved one had died in this plane crash, because the plane crashed near there. And so there's a wonderful couple. They were Caucasian, and they were my friend. She's Filipina, but her husband was half black, half white. And so anyway, they were very friendly, and they're very welcoming. And, I just started talking to them about, I've heard my things about Mississippi, and most of them aren't so great when it comes to race relationships. He's like, yeah. And I told him about, and I mentioned that name, Emmett Till. He said, oh, you know about Emmett Till? I said, yeah, I know about Emmett Till. And I'll tell you, Emmett Till was a 14-year-old kid who came down to Mississippi to visit relatives for like a summer or something like that. He was only 14. And supposedly he whistled at a white woman in a like a little grocery store or something like that. Later on that night, the friends, relatives of this woman came to where he was. They took him out of bed and went and lynched the poor guy, beat him to death, and then tied a tire around his neck and threw him into the river. And the man was being friendly. He's like, I know where that happened. I can show you where that happened. You want to go see that? I'm like, no, not really. I don't, but thanks. But, he was trying to be friendly because he knew that he was surprised I knew about it. This happened in 1955, but.
It was a catalyst for everything that kicked off after that, because his mom put it out there.
Yeah, his mom was like, I'm going to have an open casket. I'm going to this is going to be, show people what they did.
Yes.
And not let them just sweep it under the rug. And so, anyway, the woman was like, hey, do y'all want to go to church with us on Sunday? And part of me was like, yeah, I'd like to go to church. But part of me was like, well, this is still the South, so I know some of the attitudes around some of these people around here. But my friend chimed in, oh, yeah, we'll go to church with you. So, yeah, we went to church, and the lady came and picked us up. And she was saying, oh, we got a new pastor a couple of years ago from Texas. And the demographic around the church has changed over the years. And she said the pastor wanted to start pastoring to some people that live near the church. So the demographic around the church now has changed from being mostly white to mostly black and Hispanic people living near the church. And she said, Isaac, half the congregation left the church. And would you know why? I said, well, I'm probably sure it's because they didn't want to go to church with black people and Hispanic people. She goes, you were exactly right. I said, yeah, well, and I said this to my mom. I'm like, yeah, we're in Mississippi, and people still want to live in the Civil War times with attitudes. And it's sad because these people consider themselves to be Christian. They think they're Christians, but they don't want to be with Christians and do the things that Jesus talked about doing. No, they're too busy being racist. But they think they're still good Christians, even though they're racist. That's just sad. That's not Christianity. I mean, if Jesus was walking around right now, I think he'd be shaking his head a lot, saying,
No, it's absolutely a violation of and antithetical to everything that the New Testament is fighting for.
Yeah, but lots of people in the world and a lot of people in the United States that aren't listening to that part of it.
Yeah, but then don't be a Christian. Don't say, I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. If you're going to say, look, you live in a free country. You don't have to be religious at all. You can worship however you want. But if you're going to say, especially if you're going to say, I'm a fundamental Bible evangelical, if you're going to say, I am a disciple of Jesus Christ, you don't get to just ignore what is so explicitly clear. That is what the apostles are fighting for throughout the New Testament, is breaking down the dividing wall between human races, because Jesus has brought us all together as one people. We're still distinct. We still have all that makes us distinct, but the celebration of heaven is all the nations, all the tongues. We're all together. We're all one people. We're all one bride. So
yeah,
if you,
I understand what you're saying, but that's what makes me shake my head about some of the Christians I run across and some of the people I see on TV who tout Christianity and talk about it, and I'm like, but that's not what you're not living that. If you are the kind of person who's like, well, we don't want minorities in our church. Well, that's not Christianity.
But that needs to be addressed. You know, it's funny.
Well, that's been going on since before the 60s, or the 50s. It's been going on since 1800s. I mean, it's sad, but that's just the truth of it. And that's how some people are in this country.
This is the problem with the argument that I hear then. So Ben Shapiro will say, show me where there's institutional racism. Show me a racist, and we'll go deal with it. We'll go address it. Show me an instance of racism, and we'll go deal with it. And in an instance like this, wherever we know it's happening, we have a responsibility to go and address it and say, hey, if you are preaching racism or promoting racism in your congregation, you need to stop being a pastor. And we need to stop endorsing you as Christians and allowing you to continue to teach what is antithetical to what the Bible teaches.
But it's funny. You can say all these things. It's great. But I've heard so many people argue the fact that, oh, I'm not a racist. I just don't want to go to church with minorities. Well, then what are you then?
That is racism.
But they don't see it that way. That's the sad part about it. I'm not a racist. I know old Willie down at the shop. I talk to him all the time. He's a janitor. Is he a friend of yours, or you just nod at him when he's mopping up the floor? He's not a friend. He's not somebody you go to church with. You don't know. You don't even know his last name. You just know him as Willie.
So
you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
I get it when the typical congregants. I get it when people are just kind of going with the flow, I guess, and maybe just following whatever the teachings are. I'm not okay with it when it comes to the teachers and the leaders, because they are the ones that ultimately set up the ethos that whatever that community is going to live out. They're the ones that set the vibe. And I do believe that there is a level of accountability that even the Bible talks about, that if you are going to teach, you are not only accountable to the people of God, you're also accountable to God, but you will come under much stricter judgment. So like, what can be done when you have, it's not just an idea like, oh yeah, there's people in the South who are still doing this. It's like, no, I'll tell you the church, I'll tell you the teacher, I'll tell you the pastor, I'll tell you.
Well, see, that was the thing that she was saying. She said the pastor wanted to come in and bring these people into the church and bring them in and teach with them also and bring them in. It was the people, the congregation. It was like, no, we don't want that, and left.
But where did they go?
Another church somewhere. I don't know. I didn't care where they went.
Right.
I just asked her. She said half the congregation left.
Right.
It was a nice big building, a big church. Had plantation columns on it and everything. It was beautiful, but they left because they don't want to go to church with people that weren't the same color as they were.
Do you experience that here in Los Angeles? Do you experience that in the industry?
You know what? I mean, I don't walk around looking for it. I mean, I don't really experience it much here in California. I don't. I've seen stuff, but it's not been blatant here. You know, it's not as blatant as it can be in some other places in the country. I mean, I've only had one thing that made me kind of laugh on the inside and just made me sad at the same time for the person that said it. I was talking to a guy a couple of years ago. I don't even want to say this story. Never mind. I've run across some things.
Respect that.
And it just makes me laugh. I'll tell you about it later on. I don't need to be out in the world for these people. But,
I respect that.
But it's just funny how things happen in our industry. I run across some people who are like, "How did you get that movie?" I'm like, "Because I've got tenacity and I go after things." That's how I got it. Plus, they saw that I could do the job. That's why they hired me.
The tenacity to be like, "Listen, I want a real role. I just want to be in the background. Look at me. I deserve to be in this movie." How do you experience when you're in the industry and you have the values that you hold as a Christian, values that you hold spiritually? What's that like?
You know what? It's like me walking around every single day because that's just who I am, and I don't mind anybody who knows it. So it's like on my one set. We go to lunch. I pray before my meal. I pray in front of everybody. I don't pray it loud. I'm just hands together, bow my head, say my blessing, start eating. And it's been great because a lot of people have come up and said, do you pray? I'm like, yeah, I pray. And I've had conversations about my beliefs and all that kind of stuff. And I think that might be one of the reasons why God said you're going to be in the film industry, because I might plant a seed for somebody. And I'm not even trying to be a preacher or a pastor. I'm just living my life. These are the things I do on a daily basis. I don't hide my religion. I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian, because why would I? That's who I am. And I like being a Christian. It's fun.
And how do people, it sounds like you experience
and so
a
people,
reception of...
I have reception of people like other Christians. I'll meet other Christians on set. I pray too. I'm like, that's cool. And other times people are like, well, tell me about this thing, because I'm not really a believer. And I'm like, well, I'll tell them my beliefs, but I'm not like whipping out a Bible, and because I don't have a Bible sitting next to me. So
well, you didn't go to set to evangelize.
Tell them my beliefs and what happened with me, and that's it. And maybe I've just planted a little seed, and they can go, and somebody else might make the seed grow later on. Who knows? Maybe I'm just the one that little spark, that little question, even being willing to answer that question for somebody, because I don't hide away and shy away from it.
Why are you a Christian?
Well, my parents raised me in the church, but I started to understand about Christianity and accepted the Lord when I was like 13 years old, because then I was old enough to understand what it really meant. Not just I'm going to church, I listen to people sing, we listen to a pastor, and we go back home. I really understood it when I was about 13, and then I accepted the Lord when I was about 13. And that's why I'm a Christian, because I know it's true. I believe it. It came into my heart. It's true. It's real. It happened.
What about the people that would say, well, you grew up indoctrinated in it, and that's just what you ended up with?
I can hear that, but at the same time, like I said, God showed me some signs when I was 4 that I didn't get until I was a sophomore in college. I was supposed to be an actor, because my goal since 8th grade to my sophomore year of college, I was going to be a commodities broker. God showed me specific signs that He'd been showing me since I was 4 years old. I understood it right then and there. And then I walked home praying to God about it. And when I got home, He gave me another sign that was even bigger. I'm like, okay, God. And the next thing I know, I found out about University of Central Florida in Orlando. I moved down there. They were doing shows at Nickelodeon and all that kind of stuff. So I worked at Universal. And then I got hired at Disney doing the Indiana Jones stunt show there, which was an equity show. I mean, Disney has hired me a lot in my career. I'm very thankful. I mean, Thanos is a Disney character. Yeah. I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean, Disney. I mean, Disney I've been very thankful for Disney being in existence, because Disney's really done a lot that's made my career even climb higher and higher. I mean, Deadpool, they own Marvel, which is Disney. And, so that's just Disney.
You got to do a lot of fun stuff at Disney.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, Pirates of the Caribbean, that was one of my favorite roles. And I would love to get in the next Pirates that they could do. I mean, I can see it now. I can see where they could bring my character back, because a lot of the people, I go and sign autographs all over the country, went to England this year and signed, and people were like, why aren't you in more of the pirate movies? I'm like, you got to talk to the people over that are making the movie, because I mean, people loved my character. I know I loved doing it. I know I did a good job at it, so I loved it.
Dude, your character was so bold and great. It was... Okay, so what do we got to do to get this guy hired in the next Pirates? What do we got to do to get his character back? Come on, Disney. This guy right here, Isaac C. Singleton Jr.
Yeah.
So when you're in the level of success that you experience in the entertainment industry, how do you experience your faith conflicting with lifestyle and your own appetites, your own attractions, your own temptations? What's that like to live as a disciple of Jesus in Los Angeles?
Well, you build your own tribe wherever you go. So I have a tribe of people that have my same likes in mind. That's really what it is. I mean, I run in a lot of different circles and around a lot of different people, but I know who I am as a person. I never was the kind of guy who succumbed to peer pressure, like even in high school or whatever. I mean, I just did what I knew was right in my heart, And I did do the things I knew weren't right in my heart. That's the bottom line.
Would have been some difficulties for you where you have felt a conflict in what you're longing for, but what it is to actually honor the Lord in your values and as a disciple?
Well, that's just, once again, I mean, I have to be honest with you. I haven't really had any conflicts like that because I know what I'm going to do and I know what I'm not going to do. Here's a perfect example. When I first moved out to California, a friend of mine, I was going to American Academy of Dramatic Arts for their summer program. And a guy at my school was like, hey, Isaac, I got invited to a party. You want to come with me? I'm like, yeah, sure. He said, there's going to be a lot of industry folk there. I'm like, sure, I'll go. So I went to the party and I met some people that were in the industry and some people who weren't in the industry. And I met a guy who was a doctor and we were talking for a little bit and then I kind of moseyed around. And about an hour later, I ran into the doctor again. He and some other guys were huddled in the corner and they were doing coke. Well, I'm like, he's like, hey, Isaac, you want to do some of this coke? I'm like, no, I don't do that, but thank you very much. But I just had to ask him a question. I was like, you're a doctor. You know this coke isn't good for you. Why do you do this? His answer was, well, it helps enhance my personality. I'm like, oh, I was like, okay, well, all right. Because I mean, like, why would I want, I don't.
You don't need enhancement to your personality.
No, just like, well, I'm so high on life. I don't need to have some extra stimulant to make me feel better or something inside of me. I mean, I'm happy with me. I don't need to do drugs. Drugs aren't healthy for you. People have died from them. I mean, and especially with this stuff that's going on with fentanyl now, people are dying when they think they're taking something and they're getting something else instead. I'm like, yeah, why would you even want to mess with that stuff?
It sounds like for most of your experience, you have really pursued living into radical genuineness of who you are, but you really seem to have a very solid comfort with just
well, yeah, but I mean, I had great parents who raised me up the right way, so that was probably a plus there too. And I was never the guy.
Doesn't that make a big difference when you look at people who have such a sense of security versus so many people that don't have that level of security?
Yeah, but you know what? It's funny. I know some people who have had the opposite of me as far as like parents and stuff is concerned, who for some reason knew that, hey, what I'm seeing with my parents just is not right. And I'm going to go the opposite direction because I want a better existence in what they're living. And they have the same kind of conviction I have. So, but I'm just glad that I had parents who had a loving household. You know, our house is almost like a sitcom you see on a weeknight, you know, where, you know, the kids might get in a little trouble. We never got in bad trouble, but, you know, but it got resolved. And it wasn't like, oh, you're out of the house. I never want to see you again. You know, how can you do that to us, our family? No, it was our family. It was a loving, happy family.
Sounds like a lot of stability.
There was a lot of stability there. Mom and dad were together, and we had a loving family. We did the things that families do. Go on vacations. We had laughter. We had fun. We had dinners together. All that kind of stuff. You know.
That sounds pretty healthy.
It was healthy.
You are single today.
Thanks for bringing that up.
What is...
Yes, ladies, point at me and laugh.
Hey,
I'm like in a cage in a zoo. Ooh, a single
Isaac
man.
Singleton Jr. is single.
That's what it is. That's what a single's for. Isaac single.
But you long for family. You long for relationship.
Like to find a wife. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Someone I can build a relationship with and go off and do the things I want to do, like travel and see the world, and like to do that with a partner. That would be great.
So what is the dating life like in Los Angeles and in the industry?
Well, I do a lot of difference in a lot of guys. I have a sign. I write down single gentleman looking for wonderful woman. And I stand near, near off ramps of, off the 405 or the 101, like, hey.
Yeah, but you got to
spin the sign and everything like that and have a sign pointing at me. You know?
You got to put the costume on from the movies, though, and then you'll really get
See, but I don't want them to know me from my film industry work because they were like, hey, he's an actor. I don't want them to know
Have you experienced that when you're going on dates or when you're like, does that undermine the fact that
No,
you have the
because
life?
I don't tell people that stuff. You know, if they know, they know. If they don't, but I don't. But I'm not. That's another thing. My identity isn't what I do for a living. My identity is Isaac C. Singleton Jr., upstanding, good guy who just happens to be an actor and does voiceovers. That's how I look at it.
You know what's so trippy? That's even how my family knows you. Like, you just happen to be in all the coolest stuff, but to us, you're a friend. Like, you came on our birthday party. Like, you're that's who you are. And
Well, I heard there was going to be free cakes.
no, I think we made you pay for that. So
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, I got $5. What?
I was like, Isaac, this glass of scotch
I
costs.
don't even like I don't even like chocolate cake.
Okay, so you're not standing out on the roadside.
No, I'm not
What do you?
standing out
So what do you do? Do you dating apps? Do you do?
I'm on one app.
You are. What's the app?
It's called Hinge.
Hinge. That.
But I'm also what I'm really truly doing is I'm talking to people now. I'm instead of just keeping it to myself, I'm actually talking to people who have my kind of values, who would have friends like my kind of values, and say, hey, look, this is what I'm looking for. If you know anybody that you think that would be compatible, let me know. And then they might meet a great guy.
How does that work out? Like, how have you experienced the results?
So far, I mean, I've had people try to introduce me to certain people, but like one guy's like, well, my friend, she's in Miami. I'm like, that's great. That's Miami. Another friend who just called me yesterday. She says, well, she lives overseas and she's in Europe right now. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't help me because I'm in California right now. But thanks for thinking about me. You know, so that's all. You know, things like that. But
You have so you don't. So what is the difference between Hinge and Tinder and what's the other one? Hinge and Tinder. What's the difference between those two?
Well, I think on Hinge, I think people are like trying to look for a relationship. From understanding, I don't know. I've never been on Tinder. From talking to people who are on Tinder, that's from what I've been told because I wasn't on there. That's more like that's just trying to hook up. You know, find a little quick hookup for a little while, not really trying to find something forever.
But Hinge, actually, the people that are on there, they're really wanting.
Oh, I don't. I mean, I'm hoping that
So far this way.
what I write in my bio lets you know what I'm looking for. Meaning, I'm looking for long term. I'm telling you what I want so you can just swipe left if you don't want a long term relationship on me. You know that everybody knows on my bio. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who's adventurous, who likes to do things indoors and outdoors, who likes museums and all that kind of stuff, who likes concerts, but also willing to go hiking or camping or biking, whatever like that too. One who likes to travel, things like that, but at the same time, I'm looking for long term. I'm not looking for just a hookup real quick and then next see it and then next and instead yell out to the window, next. You know, I'm looking for, all right, this is it forever. Thank you very much. Let's build something here.
So can I ask you why in all of your success and for as long as you've lived in LA, how are you still single then?
Well, I mean, because I won't. I've had love since I moved to California. That just unfortunately did not work out due to circumstances beyond both of our controls. And you know, one I think about, I think she lives in Switzerland now because she was here illegally. I didn't know that when I first met her, and things happened. She had to leave the country eventually. So that's what happened. I was working on Pirates at the time, so that was a while ago. But yeah, I still think about her sometimes. But for the most part, I'm just not going to settle just because it's a warm body that's available for right now. If I know that you've got the same values or you're looking for the same thing, I'm not going to waste your time by just taking up your time for now and then maybe run into somebody better along the way. You know, I'm not going to do that to somebody.
Just to make you feel good for the time
so
being.
why would I do that to someone? I mean, I've had conversation with people who are like, I've had talked to girls and some guys like, yeah, she was like, well, I like him. He's okay, but he's not my forever guy. But I'm just going to see him for now. And then if something comes along better, then I'll just go with that guy. Well, I'm like, well, what if this guy really likes you and he's really trying to build something with you and you're just kind of taking up the time because you don't want to be alone. But then all of a sudden you meet what you really want, that you think you're going to meet what you really want. And then you're going to break this guy's heart just so you can run off with this other guy.
Do you
That's
think?
not right.
Do you think people in specifically like big cities, but LA, do you think they're even interested in that, or do they just always want to keep their options open? Like they.
I, I, I mean, that's going to be that will be a question for each individual person. There's people out here who want to keep their options
Yeah,
open. There's other people out here who are really seriously looking for something. There's other people out here who don't really want a long-term relationship. They just want to have fun. There's all these types out here, that want different things.
I just felt like my experience, even in the church, when I was living in Hollywood and I was a part of a pretty sizable church and filled with a lot of young adults, I found, especially with a lot of the women in their 20s to 30s, they were really struggling because they wanted to find a serious relationship, but they were finding that so many of the people that were in Hollywood weren't interested in that. And it almost became a running joke where we would tell someone like that, we would just be like, just move out of California. Like, you will be married within a year. If you just move anywhere outside of California, we put money on it. Give it 1 year, you're married, you're having family and kids. But there's something about Los Angeles. Maybe it's maybe it's just so transitory. Maybe so many people are moving in and out. It's hard to even build the community. Like you're talking about building a tribe or having a tribe. I feel like a lot of people have a hard time. It's even hard to buy a house.
Well, yeah. Well, I think the thing also is a lot of people I run across this too. A lot of people, especially in the film industry, they're focused on their film industry. They're focused on trying to make it in Hollywood, quote unquote, air quotes, make it in Hollywood. And that means they don't have time for relationships because they don't want to worry about missing out on whatever they might miss out on if they're involved with somebody who's going to take their time or take their attention away from what they're really focusing on. I noticed that a lot in LA. And then also, you're right. A lot of people move here trying to make it in Hollywood, and they didn't bring enough money with them, and it's not a cheap place to live, and they ended up going back to wherever they came from because they couldn't make it out here. That happens too. But really, the bottom line is, so that's another thing where you don't know how long you're going to be with somebody or even see them or if they're going to make it and be able to last out here in this city.
In light of what you see and in light of what you perceive, how do you see being able to pursue having a healthy balance of a family and pursuing the career that, look at you. You're going to keep going and going and going. So how does that balance for you?
Well, I have room right now, and I've had room for a while to bring that kind of person into my life. I'm just not going to settle just to have a person in my life. So I've met women that I could have dated and gone out with, but you have a good conversation with them and you realize, okay, this isn't exactly what I'm looking for, so I'm not going to waste their time. That's the bottom line, because there's certain things I know that I want my future wife to have and certain things I don't want her to have, and I've run across a lot of people that don't have that, and I'm looking for the ones that do. That's all. But I'm not forlorn. I'm not sad. I'm not walking around like, oh, woe is me. I'm just going on living my life, doing my daily thing. But when she shows up, and yay, she's there.
What would you say to a lot of the people that are living in LA, whether they're successful or not, and they really do feel isolated, lonely? They feel like they're not finding somebody, or if they are finding somebody, they're going to have to settle because the person that they're looking for, it's not happening.
I'll tell you one thing. If they're settling, they're going to be even more lonely because they're going to be with somebody they don't really like. And they're going to see day after day, and they're going to end up not liking this person. They end up probably not going to work out between them. And that'll make them even more lonely and put them in more debt probably because after you get married and divorced in this state, yeah, it's not good. Not good for your pocketbook, that's for sure.
You will lose your house, which you probably couldn't even get in the first place. Mm-hmm. That was something you and I have talked about in the past, is that you're in a successful position. You part of building a family is wanting to buy a house, and yet
Yeah.
LA in the housing market.
It's something else. I mean, we got houses out here that go for $1 million, and it's just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I mean, it's not. In other parts in the country, it'll be a mansion, but here, $1 million gets you not much at all.
Maybe a 2-bedroom condo at this point.
I've seen so. I've been looking on Zillow, and there are $1 million plus condos in the city now.
So what
prices have gone crazy?
What do you feel like you're going to do with that?
Well, I guess it means that I'm going to have to really ramp up the income even more so that it won't even matter how much it costs. That's the bottom line.
So Disney, this guy right here, next Pirates, come on. No, but in all seriousness, where do you see your career going in the next years?
Okay, there will be more movies for sure. I would love to get a TV series. That would be wonderful also. That means it's like you got your 13 weeks of know what you're going to be doing, hiatus, and your 13 weeks again or whatever. That would be fun. And that's what I see as far as my career. And then continuing to doing the voiceovers. I mean, I would like to become a voice of a studio, though, like the guy that does the voice of like how James Earl Jones says, "This is CNN." I would like to some company would just like hire me to say, "This is," whoever they want me to say this is, and then give me a check every time I say it.
That sounds so beautiful just hearing that. Can you say, "This is the Rising"?
Yes, I can. This is the Rising.
Oh, I love it. Okay, we got to end there. That's so good. Man, thank you so much for letting me have fun with you and actually teaching me things that I need to think about. And it's been fascinating.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me once again.
Is there anything else that you want to say to everyone watching before we wrap up?
I would just say, be happy. Try to find your happiness, and I don't know if you don't know God, try to meet Him because He's pretty cool.
And to speak to that, and I think God has played such a important part of this. What I love about my experience of you and knowing you and even experiencing you here is you just have such a steady confidence in who you are. I've never really felt like trying to be somebody you're not. Mm-hmm. And you seem very happy to be who you are, do what you do, and even in talking about relationships, you're not even willing to settle just to try to satisfy that feeling of being alone. And man, it is such a model for happiness and success.
Well, like I said, I think about the consequences of my actions. And once again, you think of the consequences of settling. Okay, sure, in the beginning it might feel great because you're not by yourself. It's a new toy almost, It's like Christmas, a new toy. But after a while, it's going to lose its luster, and you're going to start to see that this isn't what I want at all because I settled, and now I'm with this person. They're here constantly. I got to hear them talking. They're doing their thing, and I got to be in their mess, and their mess is around my mess, and that's not going to be happy for you because you're going to be like, oh, shoot, I could have waited instead of settling and just picking this person because it was better than nothing. No, better than nothing is sometimes really good because you never know. You know what the nothing is, and that's who you are with yourself, and I hope you like yourself. And then all of a sudden, something great comes along, and you're like, wow, I'm glad I waited. But when you settled, you're stuck.
Dude, that's totally going to happen for you because you are happy with yourself, mm-hmm. and you have God in your life, leading your life. You are the great things that are coming along for you.
I'm very thankful.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for inviting me.
Isaac C. Singleton Jr., everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're out.